California State Parks. Welcome to Hearst Sansimian State Historical Monument. A long phrase for saying welcome to Hearst Castle. Now, I want to be sure everybody's here for the Grand Rooms tour, right? Excellent. Okay, we're going to see both of the pools today. The outdoor Neptune pool will be our second stop, and then I'm going to take you through the gardens, which were really as important to Mr. Hearst as the inside of his house, because if he found you in there in the day, he would shoo you out, okay? He didn't want you hanging around in the house. He wanted you outside enjoying everything. And then we will go into Casa Grande, see the 5 main entertaining rooms that he used for his guests. And then we're going to make our way to the fanciest bus stop in California. That is our Roman pool, all right? And that is where you're going to catch that same bus back down to the visitor center, okay? All right, now they make me go over those guidelines that you probably heard on the bus again. So it's a quiz. What can you touch?
The handrail.
The handrails, excellent. Yes, these puppies and those black ones for your touching pleasure, all right? All right, I want you guys to use those when we're out in the gardens. Lots of terraces, lots of stairs out here, so use those as much as possible. And then I do want to warn you that up at the Neptune pool, there's lots of marble, and it's going to call to you, and it's going to say, lean against me and for your photograph. Yes, no, don't do it. Do not listen to the marble. And if you want to touch marble, there's a great museum down at the visitor center where we have it, and it shows you what happens to marble if we touch it a lot. It turns a completely different color. And when we get inside, there's going to be a blue-gray tour mat. I ask that you walk on that for me, okay? And if I call out, or if one of the security people asks you to step back on, please don't take it personally. You are not the first, you will not be the last to step off of that carpet, because let me demonstrate what it's like. And Roberto, my friend here, Robert, he will attest to this. When you get into the rooms, if you've never been here, this is it. You walk in, and let's say the carpet is that crack right there, that's where it stops. You walk in and you're like this.
Hey, back on the carpet.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry. Okay, so there you go. And he's tough, okay? Watch out for him. Now, and then take as many photos as you want. Just be sure your flash is off once we get inside the buildings. And short list, consumable, water. Everything else, food, chewing gum, smoking, vaping products, and anything sticky or colored liquid-wise, you have to do that back down at the visitor center, okay? Those help us maintain the monument for generations to come. So thank you for your help with that. And then lastly, we need to stay together as a group. So when we get to a spot, if you like it, take your pictures when we get there. We will not be coming back. And then as I move, I ask that you move along with me. You need to stay between me and Robert. And if you have any logistical needs or something comes up, you can talk to Robert about those, okay? All right, he's resting his voice this tour, yeah. Okay, enough of all those pleasantries. Why are you here? Anyone? Well, you knew I was going to tell you why, right? So here we go. Just imagine that you're holding something in your hand that communicates with you, but it does not have a screen, it doesn't vibrate or anything like that. It's a piece of paper, and it is from the desk of William Randolph Hearst. He has invited you to his ranch, not his castle, but his ranch in Sansimian, California. And you have answered what to Mr. Hearst's invitation?
Yes.
Yes, you have. That's right. But you're kind of wondering, why is it in the middle of nowhere? Well, I think when we get up to our first stop, the West Terrace, you're going to figure it out, okay? You can take either stairs. We're going to be turning right, and then you guys find shade wherever you can, all right? Let's go on up. good group of newbies. Awesome. So, newbies, why do you think he wanted to build up here?
The view.
The view. That's right. And he actually told that to Julia Morgan, his architect. He said the thing at the ranch, the most important thing, is the view. All right. And you will see on the tour that she helped him take great advantage of those views everywhere. All right. Now, did anybody have a chance to watch the movie down in the IMAX theater down at the Visitor Center yet?
Yes.
Okay, well, good for you. Everybody else follow suit. No. Actually, it's good. It's every hour on the hour down there, and it's about 40 minutes. And they have reenactments of a lot of the stuff that I'll talk about. And it's really nice to see it on a huge screen. And also you get aerial views of the estate, which is pretty cool. All right. So, and you just hold on to your bracelet because that is what gets you in there, okay? All right, a little background. Why is it in the middle of nowhere? That's because of his dad. George Hearst, his father was a Missouri farmer, and he teaches himself lead mining back there. Then 1849 happens here in California. That would be the what, you guys?
Gold rush.
Gold rush, right. And he thinks, I'm going to come out there and strike it rich. Well, George eventually does, but it takes almost 10 years. And it is not with gold. It is silver. He actually had a nickname from the Native Americans that lived back in Missouri. They said he was the boy who the earth talked to. He was very good at reading, the signs on the upper crust of the earth and knowing what might be underneath there or what things were made out of. And that was the case with the silver strike that he saw. Some guys bring some ore out of. It was way east of the Sierras over in what is now the state of Nevada. Ended up being the Comstock lode, which was the richest silver strike in American history. And he becomes a rich man by hauling about 38 tons of that ore out of the ground and over to San Francisco. So, in 1860, he's out here, and he hears, though, that his mom is ill. So, the new millionaire goes back to Missouri to see his mom, take care of family business, and it's there that he meets the girl next door. And she's an 18-year-old school teacher, Phoebe Apperson. And George takes a liking to her. He is about 40 at this point, but that's not unusual for a miner because they've been out, it took him a decade to become a millionaire. And so now he's ready to have a family. And Phoebe, she consents to marriage, and they marry in 1862 and settle in San Francisco. And it's there that our host, their only child, William Randolph Hearst, is born. Okay, so in about 1865, George starts using some of his new wealth to buy land, and you are standing on some of it right now, 40,000 acres, and it is supposed to be some business opportunities for him, but none of those that he planned on worked out, but he ends up ranching here. So there you go, the ranch. They raise cattle and raise horses here. And William grows up coming here camping with his family. This is affectionately called Camp Hill. All right, so now you know why it's in the middle of nowhere, but why? Why does it look like you could be standing in front of a villa in Italy or southern Spain? And by the way, all you new people, you're not going to go in there. That is small fry. That is a casita. That is one of the guest cottages. Only about 3,600 square feet. And it's the middle size guest cottage, 18 rooms, 3 levels, all right? We're gonna find out why it looks like this, but we're gonna do that over at the Roman pool, all right? Oh no, I'm sorry, the Neptune pool, I misspoke. Let's go. for something that he thought might be temporary. Okay, why? Why does it look like this? Well, we owe that to his mother, to Phoebe Appleson-Hearst. She was intensely, obviously, interested in education. And so when her son is 10 years old, she does what a lot of wealthy people do in the 19th century. She takes him on a grand European vacation, and actually they are gone for 18 months, all right, traveling. And it's that trip that introduces young Will, as they call him, to art, to architecture history, and his passion for collecting is ignited on that trip. In fact, Phoebe, she writes George back home and says, "I'm worried about Will. He seems to have developed such a mania for antiques." And he collects Roman coins and picture, postcard kind of things that you would view in a viewer, and different things like that. So here you see more of those collecting habits, but the Roman things are a little larger. That would be over there on the temple facade. The columns themselves and portions of the pediment, that's the facing of the temple and that triangular piece, those are Roman, 1st through the 4th century AD. So like 1600, 1900 years of age. And he buys that and asks Julia Morgan, his architect, to put those together. Basically, he's asking her to put together a jigsaw puzzle. Some of the jigsaw puzzle is brand new, 20th century, steel reinforced concrete, and then other pieces are like those that are either antiques or antiquities. Up at the top, in the center, that's the namesake, that's Neptune, the Roman god of the sea, and he's about 400 years old. Also from Italy, as are his nymphs on either side of him. But then the other statues that you see around here out of the Carrara marble, those are 20th century. They are made, sculpted by a French artist by the name of Charles Cassou, and Mr. Hearst orders those for this pool. All right. Now, anything you guys want to know about this pool before I charge on?
When is it the last time it was actually used?
It just recently. Hey, Robert, when was the last swim? Was it last weekend? 2 weeks ago, right? Okay, yeah. And so there is it's called the Foundation at Hearst Castle, and you have to pay a big sizable donation to be a part of it. And then they have fundraisers, and then you buy tickets to those, and they have swims, and also the next weekend they had a dinner up in a house, which we will pass. That was his residence with his family for a few years, down on the loggia overlooking the Pacific. Dinner, and then they got to watch a movie in the movie palace that's in the house. All right. So yeah, it's still being used, and I think that would make him happy. I think he would love that. He wanted it to be a museum, but I think he still wanted it to be, used by people. And he has about 70 direct descendants at this point in time. All right. So the pool is about 3.5 feet deep here, or about 1 meter if you're on the metric. Down there, 10 feet deep, about 3 meters deep, and it holds 345,000 gallons of water. That is 1.3 million liters. Okay, that's a lot of Coke bottle things filled, those are 2 liters, but and it all comes from the artesian springs that George Hearst found up at about 3,000 feet above sea level on Pine Mountain back behind us. We're at about 1,600 right now. So we're going to head up to the Neptune Terrace. We have a great bird's eye view of this pool, and you'll be standing on the 17 dressing rooms that we would use as his guests. And we'll talk a little bit more about that woman who helped him with the jigsaw puzzle. Neptune Terrace, another fantastic view, wouldn't you say? And I'll tell you something about Mr. Hearst that Julia Morgan wrote in a letter to one of his art dealers. And she said, the biggest trouble with Mr. Hearst is he suffers from a severe case of changeableness of mind. All right. And she said, but on, conversely, at times he allows me to change my mind as well. So they worked up here for 28 years together. When he approached her about it, he said he wanted a little something at the ranch. Oh, he thought it would take her about a year, maybe. Well, in about a month, it went to the grand scale. And everything really did change. That pool that you were by, that's not the first, it's not the second, that is the third pool on that site, okay? Started as a rose garden. And then in 1924, he is instructed by his wife to write Julia Morgan, and this is what he says. He says, Mrs. Hearst and the children, that's his wife, and 5 boys, are anxious to have a swimming pool at the ranch, even if it's temporary. And so by that summer, 1924, they did have a small oval that kind of runs a little more east-west, and they used that, but of course that was not going to be grand enough for his vision. So it quickly increases to about the size of that dark oval that you see out in the middle, and that's 1926. Neptune is then living up here at the top. There's a cascading water feature that goes into the second pool. And again, he wants it bigger and better. So by 1936, it is completed, and she has given him the larger pool, the temple, and then the 2 colonnades that frame some of those wonderful views that he so loved. Now, and the other change too was that the terraces and the gardens were smaller. About 1927, he goes on another European vacation, and he writes to Julia Morgan saying that that the Italian gardens have it all over us. And he said, and what it is, it's the space. They are larger. So all of the terraces were enlarged, including the one we started on. And he is extremely particular about those gardens. He's just as involved in it as she is. She is actually not only his architect, she is his landscape designer, and she is the interior designer as well. She hires and fires the artisans and the construction workers, and she runs payroll for him. And this is number 503 in a project list that numbers over 740 years. And when I say 503, I don't mean that the Casa del Sol, the house that we started it from, that looks at the west setting sun every night, that's 503, and then this one, the cottage that is House of the Mountain, Casa del Monte, is number 504. No, the entire thing. Every building, every bunkhouse, every kitchen, every house down in San Simeon Village, every warehouse, all of it is number 503. Now, what makes a woman like this? Well, she had a very strong mother, just like Mr. Hearst had a very strong mother, and they and her parents don't discourage her about her dreams to become an architect. She goes to UC Berkeley, gets her civil engineering degree there, and then attempts to get into the École des Beaux-Arts, and she is the first woman in there, and first one to graduate, and the first one to come back to our state and become an architect here in the state of California. All right, she did lots of things for him, but we're about to go and see the oldest pieces here on the hilltop that she put together into a fountain. Yeah, that's my favorite view of it, from right down there. It's so beautiful. That is a bit of a cooler if anybody needs to stand in that front of it. Quickly down. Now, I told you Opus Pieces. This is a Sekhmet, 4 sculptures of her. She is the Egyptian goddess of power, of war, of medicine, the giver and taker of life. And she is the daughter and said to be the fierce protector of the sun god Ra. These are all sculpted in the 18th and 19th dynasties of the pharaohs of Egypt. That means that they're somewhere between 33, 35, 3,600 years of age. Carved out of a very hard stone called diorite. And it's so hard. Look at all the detail that she has retained. She even is still wearing her necklace, this lower one down here. And some people think that's a crack, but that up there on our top figure is actually a natural deposit of feldspar. And Miss Morgan highlights that with the pink Verona marble columns, and then the roses that are going over that arch actually bloom pink. So nothing is an accident. He buys these after Egyptomania sweeps the world because of King Tut's tomb being opened. And then in about 1930, he has all 4 and says, I want them featured. And she makes this Art Deco fountain for him. And actually, even Art Deco borrowed its style from the Egyptians. All right. Now, as a guest, this might be the first thing you would see when you came up, because you would have been dropped off right down below the South Terrace, met by some of his staff. They would take your luggage and bring you up to Casa Grande to get your room assignment. Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to sit on any of the marble benches or the patio furniture or be underneath the misters under the magnolia tree, okay? But I do advise that you not touch the Roman funerary objects unless you want to curse on your family. Yes, it happens. No, I'm kidding. Now, Casa Grande. Julia Morgan actually is making a small Mediterranean village for him up here, all right? And she builds this, and what does it look like to you guys? Does it? A church, yes, it looks like a church. And actually a church is what they modeled it after, Santa Maria del Mayor, I believe, in Ronda, Spain. It had an 8-sided bell tower like this. 2 stories, 1 tower. But Mr. Hearst, you know, he needs symmetry. So we've got 2 bell towers. All of it is steel reinforced concrete. And then it's lined with a veneer of Utah limestone. And there are pieces on the facade that are actually antiques. Above the door, that is the Madonna and Child there. She was carved out of sandstone sometime in the 1200s. And graced a church, but she was painted very brightly. And in the upper left-hand corner, you can see, actually all the way up in there, you see a little bit of the red pigment is still on that sculpture. And then below her, we have that door, a 16th century convent door from Sevilla, Spain, that is only the rectangular portion, and then his ironworker, Ed Trinkeller, a German immigrant, makes the fan to match it, and then they gild those pieces. Oh, that's the lucky people who are doing conservation for us in there. Now, around and then on either side of that door, Spanish wild men from the 1400s said to protect anyone who enters from any evil spirits. They are keeping them at bay. All right, now, it was 2 stories. He changes his mind. He wants to live in there and not in Casa del Mar, the last of the guest cottages that we passed. So she raises it. It's now 4 stories. And the 3rd story, just below that teak wood cornice, is his suite of rooms, where that iron balconies are. And his bedroom over on your right, and on the south corner, his mistress, Marion Davies, is over on the right up there. And I do want to point out the 21st century plastic owls. Mm-hmm. Do you see those? No. Actually, they're there to try to scare the birds away because we have a woodpecker problem here, and they are constantly drilling into that teak wood up there. So I get questions about those owls occasionally. I just thought I'd ease your mind. All right, the bell towers, 36 carillon bells, 18 in each. We used to play them every day at noon, but now they're out for restoration, some of them. All right, you have 3 obligations as a guest. Okay, you want to know what they are? Cocktail hour at 7 or 7:30 in the assembly room. 2, dinner with your host at whatever time he sees fit. 3, a movie in the movie palace that is the home theater here. Not bad, huh? All right, we're going to slip in a side door because only our conservators can be on that Roman mosaic that you'll see as we go through the room. Let's go this way. Watch your step coming in here. And this is where that carpet starts. Thank you very much, sir. It's topsy-turvy day.
Yeah.
Hello. Okay, new guests, welcome to the assembly room, also known as the living room. Now, when you come in here, there are lots of things you could be doing. Right down at that end, we've got a card table. I bet you Cary Grant and a couple of his movie friends are playing poker. You might want to play with them, you might not sure. Down at this end, Monopoly is going on. Marion Davies, she loves that, and jigsaw puzzles. One of those might be out on one of the tables and you can help her put it together. Or Bing Crosby could be in here on that piano, playing and singing us a tune. Or you could just be in here reading one of Mr. Hearst's newspapers or magazines. because he is our first multimedia mogul, all right? International, actually, first one. He ends up with almost 30 newspapers, about 14 magazines here and abroad, and news services all over the world, a newsreel and movie production company, and radio stations. If it's new, if it's about communication, the latest and the greatest, Mr. Hearst is going to be involved. So you'll be here in his living room and relaxing on the 20th century overstuffed furniture, probably from Barker Brothers or Robinson's down in Los Angeles. And he might come in here in the day and find you, and he would shoo you out. But if it's a rainy day, I think he'd let you stay because he would like you to enjoy the fire in his huge French 16th century mantelpiece. He was so happy to find this. He wrote Miss Morgan and he said, "I have found the mantelpiece for the assembly room. I know you will build a hall worthy to receive it." And I think she did. And the room is not just big for big's sake, though, all right? Of course, we've got a giant fireplace, and we have tapestries. Mr. Hearst loves tapestries. He says tapestries are the headlines of history. You can tell entire stories in a tapestry or a series of tapestries, like his newspapers, like his comic strips, all right, like the illustrations he uses in his magazines. These four, the two on that west wall and then the two behind me, part of a set of 10, or at least they started out as a set of 10s. They are about the deeds of Scipio Africanus, who was a victorious Roman general who defeated Hannibal and his elephants in the Punic Wars. And I said they were 10, but sometime in the French Revolution, 6 of them disappeared, more than likely probably burned to gather the silver and gold threads that are in them. They are also wool and silk, woven in the 1500s in somewhere in Belgium, a Franco-Flemish country at the time. All right, he wants these housed in this grand room, all right? Now, when you're in here, though, he buys this furniture because he says, you cannot enjoy my art if you're not comfortable, right? So, at some point in time in here, you would have been greeted by his longtime girlfriend, Marion Davies. I said he was married, but he and his wife eventually in the mid-1920s decide to formally separate. And it's after that he and Marion live openly together here, and she's your hostess. Eventually, he'd come down, he'd nod at the butler after he met all of you, take her by the arm, and lead us all into dinner. set design and for the great room. I mean, it wasn't the only place, but they did come here and were inspired. Now, the other room that we were in, that assembly room, is very Renaissance in its style. It had a 16th century Italian ceiling. It had Italian choir stalls as paneling. Now, this room is more Gothic, right? And what gives it away? That pointed oak arch. You know, like praying hands directing your eyes to the heavens. And this room has 15th century Spanish choir stalls. They were at the front of the church and used by the clergy and the choir at the front for sitting and standing during the services. Long 16th century Spanish refectory tables in here. And you might notice that the table is pretty skinny, right? And another thing is that Mr. Hearst is seated here in the center, across from Mary Davis, her hostess. Not at the head of the table, because he's invited me here. He's not supposed to know. We probably have an interesting story to tell. He likes to be around people who have interesting lives, who are doing things, and he might want to feature you in one of his magazines, or just hear about your latest project. So, as a new guest, Miss Davies probably would have made your place card and have you sit close to them. And then, as you stay longer, you might eventually move down the table. And here, it does look all grand in the room, right? But what's about this table? It gives you the idea it's informal. Yes, ketchup and mustard. Always condiments are in their original bottles, whether it's jams, jellies, pickles, whatever's appropriate for the meal, whatever they're serving, they're out on the table in these kinds of containers. Paper napkins, no linens, even the dishes is old blue willow, and that is a stoneware. It's not fine china. His mother used a pattern. This pattern, we think, not these exact dishes, but when she came up here in camp when he was a boy. And in here, it gets lighter too. Mr. Hearst sometimes has entertainment in here. You might have Roy Rogers and the Son of the Pioneers in here. That's his favorite band. And his favorite song, right? And they could be down here. They could be in the musician's loft. And also, Miss Davies, excellent comedic actress. I highly recommend her films, by the way. She really is. She's so good. And she's great in invitations. She might be getting along with her friend Charlie Chaplin, who is here so often. He's given the nickname the court jester of San Simeon. A lot. And they can be entertaining you. It gets very fun, jovial, and you will probably want the meal to go on. It's like food. The food is food. It's farm to table. They raise cattle here still. Even to this day, on the 83,000 acres that surrounds the hilltop that the Hearst Corporation still owns, grass-fed beef. And they have a poultry farm, all kinds of different fowl. His favorite, crusty duck. They raise vegetables, they have fruit orchards, so all of it very fresh, not fancy, but ranch fare that is a little bit more elevated than what you might think cowboys would eat. Right after dinner, there's a little bit of a break because he's giving his kitchen staff time to finish up their work. He wants them to join us for the movie in a little bit. So right now, we are going to adjourn to the morning room and talk about our day. East. So if you're in here before dawn, you can watch the sun rise over the Santa Lucia Mountains out there. It's another one of the sitting rooms in Casa Grande, smaller than the assembly room, but still large enough to have, sometimes Mr. Hearst has meetings in here with his publishers. Family might be in here, or guests gathering during the day at breakfast, or even after the movie to talk about the movie. Now, I do want to point out, I showed you the 20th, 21st century owls. I don't want you to miss the 21st century aluminum scaffolding, all right, like you would. This is undergoing conservation right now, has been for about 11 years or so. And when the ceiling was put in, it wasn't large enough for this room. So the craftsmen, of course, make extensions. And that is what you see all around the perimeter. Well, they paint it to match what the actual 15th century ceiling looks like. It is dark from hundreds and hundreds of years of oil lamps burning in the room, and fireplaces and braziers and people and all that grime of centuries turns it that dark color. Well, when the conservator starts, one Q-tip, 1 inch at a time, he finds this color underneath. And this is what it might have looked like when Alfonso V, one of the kings of Spain, had it installed in one of his palaces. All right, you guys are done talking though, right? You just want to play billiards. Let's go play billiards. Bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I could just have everybody keep moving this way just a little bit more so we get everybody out of that hallway. Thank you. All right, billiards room. What's the giveaway that it's the billiards room? Okay, down at this end, what most Americans, we recognize this pocket billiards, or what is it really called? Let's just hear it. Pool, that's right. That's what I grew up playing. Now, down at that end, that's Carom billiards or French billiards. It is actually a game where you play an opponent, you each have a cue ball, you have to hit, I think it's like the opponent's ball and the bumper so many times and the red ball and all of that to just get 1 point. I think it sounds really, really too hard. So, very popular with the gentlemen and the ladies, okay? So ladies, welcome to the billiards room. Unlike East Coast society, where after dinner the genders would separate, gentlemen to go and smoke their stogies and drink whatever, and the ladies off to a little room to sit and talk. But not so with Mr. Hearst. He doesn't really like East Coast society. He's not a very pretentious man. And he likes everybody in here. He was raised by a suffragette, and she was very egalitarian. He does not look down at anyone because they don't have as much money as him, and he certainly doesn't look down at women. He surrounds himself with very strong women. Hires the first female reporter in San Francisco, west of the Mississippi. He hires an editor-in-chief of all of his magazines in Great Britain, and Alice Head, and female, and other reporters, and then his mother, she raised him to be this way. All right, she marries a wife who's a chorus girl, works her way into New York society, becomes very philanthropic, and then he falls in love with Marion Davies, who is said to be effervescent like the bubbles in champagne, warm, very generous, and kind, funny. And so he is invited all of the ladies. We're in here right along with the guys if we want to play billiards of any type. Okay, other things in the room. We've got another 15th century Spanish ceiling. The whole room has that kind of an outdoor sporting theme in its decor. So all of those paintings and those lozenges on the beams and the frieze that goes around the room, those are things that happening in the 1400s in Spain. Jousting, bullfighting, bear baiting, turrets, castles, all kinds of things like that. And also, we have one of the oldest of Mr. Hearst's tapestries. This is the Hunt of the Stag, and it was woven sometime around 1500. It is an unusual tapestry. It's all those flowers and foliage you see. It's called a mille fleurs, meaning 1,000 flowers in French. And I love the detail of it because look at how long those gentlemen have been out hunting. Well before dawn, it's probably late. And look at the bags under their eyes and the 5 o'clock shadow. And then look at the satisfied face of the stag. He's still getting away from them. Yes. All right. He likes art and old things, but he likes technology. We've got about 100 telephones up here, radios, teletype machine, telegraph, so he can run his media empire. And he, of course, has a movie theater in his home, but he will not let anyone make a commercial film up here. But what he loves, home movies. So we're going to go in, and I would like you to fill up the benches from the front to the back so that we can watch some snippets of those home movies and see what life was like up here at the ranch. How are you doing? Alright, when you come into the movie theater, your host and your hostess would be sitting right down front on that left-hand side. There's a telephone by Mr. Hearst. That is a direct line to the projectionist back there. So if he doesn't like the film, and he wants it louder or volume turned down, he can let them know. And then also in the room watching with you, I said, some of the staff will be in here. So you might be sitting by the star of the film, like say Clark Gable, and they're watching Gone with the Wind. And then on the other side of you, someone who served and made dinner. Yeah. And go ahead and start it. And here we see your host at the front of Casa Grande. He has three dresses. She's a Canadian actress, first woman to win an Academy Award for a comedic role. I think her outfit tells you that she's a comedian. I don't know what it is. Some people think she rated the film. Argyle sweater, blonde hair. Your hostess looking at the camera. That's Marion Davies. Here she is again with, who's that guy? Charlie Chaplin. Without his trimmed makeup, it's hard to recognize him. He's serenading her on his tombstone. Here he is having a good time with Adolphe Monjou on the right, another over here. Do that, and for Barbara Sheep, huge herd of those ranch. The impalas now, they're gone, but the zebras, I saw them on my way to work this morning. And yeah, there's several herds of them at the Roman pool. People got here first. That is the tennis court where you saw Charlie Chaplin playing. And what newcomers don't know sometimes is that is the roof of the Roman pool. All right. It is undergoing some conservation right now, so all of the cork acoustic tiles have been removed. There was a lot of water leakage and damage over the years, so that's undergoing some work for the next couple of years. It's very echoey down there, so that's why I'm going to pause here and tell you just a little bit about it. It was an afterthought. He was here during a really violent winter storm in about 1927 or so, and he said, we need an indoor pool. So she says, well, where would you like to build it? Oh, they're going to go there. Okay. Where would you like to be? He goes, well, how about under the tennis courts? Okay, well, we'll tear out the tennis courts. No. You can't tear out the tennis courts. And so she's like, that means she has to jackhammer and dig it with like hydraulic kind of things, but no blasting. And it is bedrock, and he wants it 10 feet deep. Yes. So it takes longer than Mr. Hearst would like to get his indoor pool. It is 10 feet deep in the main body of the pool. The alcove, which is underneath where you see the glass bricks out there by the tennis nets, that is about 3.5, 4 feet deep. It is covered by over 2 million Murano glass tiles. And the ones that look like gold, well, they're real gold. They are either 22 or 24 karat gold leaf that's sandwiched between the clear Murano glass. And it is designed by the gentleman by the name of Camille Solon. He was a muralist and a ceramicist, and he designed the murals the mosaic murals down here, and also does painting up in the Gothic study and in the entertainment wing above where we were in the theater. All right, we're going to head down there for you guys to take a look at it. I will say, though, on behalf of California State Parks, thank you so much. We really do appreciate your visit, and thanks for being so good for me and Robert. Right, Robert? They were great, weren't they? All right, so thank you, and come down, take a look. Stay to the right, though, as we go down the ramp. So like that you see the spots out here, they'll shift and like be right on one of the big stars. And yeah, it's really a little bit of a light show sometimes. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the diving platform in the center, stairs behind each wall to that, so you can dive into the night sky. And on the tiles above us, the acoustic tiles, it was painted like vines and sea creatures, so that it really was a topsy-turvy world in here. There are 10 dressing rooms on each side, one for the ladies, one for the gentlemen. All right, I'm going to check on our bus. All right, I have to send you back to the real world. Sorry. I hope you've had fun, and I know Mr. Hearst would hope you would have fun too. All right, it's the bus out to the left.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. My pleasure. Just watch, it is a little bit of a slope going up. There.
Thanks again.
You're welcome.
Thanks for coming.
Good tour?
Absolutely.
Yeah.